talking about Rand. He's the protagonist. He's the good guy. Yay, good guys. Well, if you have a good guy, you gotta have a bad guy.
Most definitely. What would Star Wars be without Vader?
Emperor. Vader's a good guy.
From a certain point of view.
Exactly. So, Derek mentioned one guy, Shaitan.
Yep.
It's like the big baddie, but you don't know about him too much early on
No, not really.
because he doesn't want to be known. He's kind of above all of this BS. He wants to like have his little underlings do his thing.
Oh, for sure.
So
Smart.
yeah, it is smart. They don't want to reveal yourself. So we're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna reveal him that much yet. We gave you a little tidbit, but
Yeah.
a little sneak peek. However, the guy that you get to know pretty quickly, his name is Balzamon.
Yes.
And he is, well, for lack of a better term, he's a badass, man.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Rand is kind of learning and going through his hero's journey. We will get to the hero's journey and some wrap up stuff way in way further down episodes.
Oh, for sure.
But whereas Rand is new, young, and young whippersnapper, just
Reckless.
learning his thing, crazy talented, and is like, ooh, wow, he's like a superstar, just doesn't know it yet.
Right.
Balzamon's older, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, he brings it. He already knows how to do stuff. He doesn't have to learn it. He doesn't have to do anything. He is the big guy.
So his name, Balzamon.
Mm-hmm.
You told me that you're going to tell me about another Egyptian god
Yes, I am.
named.
I was getting to it. I was getting to it. I gotta like
Oh,
tidbits.
oh, I'll let you go. I'll let you go.
So
Because you're about
what
to
about
drop some knowledge on me. I'm waiting
so,
for it,
so
man.
I gotta tease it out, man. So Balzamon, last four letters, Amon.
Mm.
Like, okay. So there's another Egyptian god called Amon,
Ooh.
also spelled Amon.
No.
There's a couple different spellings, but we'll take this one.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
So remember how I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting. Rand, R-A,
For sure.
Ra,
Yeah.
kind of interesting. Balzaman with Amon.
No, most definitely. Most definitely.
So again, he could have picked whatever cool name, just put some letters together, and it's fine. I thought that was kind of interesting myself.
Oh, for sure.
So we're gonna take a look at Amon.
All right.
So Egyptian gods, they're a little funny. So Amon is also known as Amon Ra.
Okay.
He kind of warped into Ra. Ra is going back to Ra. He's like everything and nothing. So he's everywhere. He's like the main head honcho. He's like takes little snippets from anywhere. But oh, isn't that syncretism?
Yes.
So these Amon, you could also say is a little bit older. He's like one of the first ones in the pantheon,
So
and
do
there
you
was
mean
actually
do you
eight.
mean do you mean older than Ra or just like old as Ra or
A little bit older.
oh, okay.
Um, again, written history.
Sure, 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 sure.
So tough to date him, or at least I don't know the date. If someone does, hit me up. I'm cool with that.
Right, right, right.
So, like I said, he's got different spellings. Amun is probably a little more common, but as an offshoot, Amon is also a different type of spelling for him. So he was part of an I want to say eight god circle.
Okay.
So it's a god, which is just a system of eight deities. It was patriarchal.
Okay.
So it's four gods and their consorts. So technically, the women weren't gods,
Oh
so to speak.
no.
Yeah, but they teamed up. So there was like a man, and a woman, and they
Mm-hmm.
teamed up to have like the four different representations of powers or
Okay.
sources, so to speak. So Amon is the one that represented air, and
Okay.
it's not necessarily breathable air; it's the hidden. So it's like the stuff around you, kind of thing. It's an abstract thought process.
Oh, all right.
So his name means hidden or hidden one. Um, so it's not like breath, where you could say some of the other ones were more tangible.
Okay.
So he was a creator god in his own. Um, if you want to almost, he wasn't like dark or anything. He was just there. He wasn't like a chaos god. He wasn't anything crazy, but he was the big guy.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting because his city, original city, was Hermopolis, which is the city of Hermes.
Oh,
Go
cool.
figure. But I don't know, that's a little kick. It's kind of funny. It's not what they called it in Egyptian, and I'm not going to butcher that name
Sure,
because
sure, sure.
it means city of the eight. It was in Egyptian. I'll
City of
try
the
to
what?
say it. City of the eight,
Of the eight. Oh, okay. Referring to the.
referring to the eight deities. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
So he was originally all the men, the gods, were frogs, like frog heads,
Wow.
and the goddesses, or I'm just gonna call them goddesses because yeah, goddess. They had heads of a serpent.
Oh,
They all
wow.
kind of depicted the same. Um, but Amun, even though they were like almost equals, he was kind of risen a little bit more than the rest. Um, yeah, is that just we don't have info? Maybe is it that I don't have info? That could be too. But everyone else kind of fell off, but he kind of kept going. In terms of worship,
Okay.
why? It's also said that these eight caused the potential of the Big Bang. Because
Mm.
all of them formed together and big of primordial dust, so to speak, or a mound,
Nice.
and it blew up from that. So kind of a creator. Maybe they thought he was more of a leader. I don't know on that regard. But uh, you also could say he was, in terms of air, kind of morphed into a god of storms ish.
Okay.
Again, it's like more hidden, not like Zeus throwing down thunderbolts,
Sure.
but more of like what's around you and the things coming from around you.
Okay.
Um, like I said, it means hidden.
Mm-hmm.
He's not invisible, but you don't see him. It's kind of like I don't say in the shadows, but the he represents the hiddenness of a deity, like the side that you don't see.
So you never quite know where he is, kind of.
But he's everywhere at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Nowhere and everywhere.
Cool.
That makes sense. He's technically, like I said, he was in power wise. It's not like Hulk, strongest there is. He, in theory, no, he wasn't. He was even. Everybody was even in his.
Okay.
They kind of considered, although they all formed the universe, it more became he created the universe.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he was. Interestingly enough, he was when color was still around. They do have a few incidents of illustration of him. He was blue.
Really?
And the thought process is it's invisibility.
Okay, like if you gave
Hey,
air a color or something.
yeah, if you think a color of an air, it's usually bluish.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a blue sky kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
No, that fits.
Yep. So originally depicted with had a huge headdress with two huge plumes on it.
Okay.
So okay, whatever. And it had a staff, and eventually down the line, that got replaced with a ram's head. A ram's head. So he was a human dude with. It went from human dude with frog head to human dude with like a headdress with two distinct, you say horns, but not quite horns.
Okay.
But they're huge. They're like
All
half the
right.
size of the body type thing. And then it morphed into a ram's head. So frog head to a headdress to an actual ram.
Okay.
Interesting.
No, that's
And,
that's really interesting.
yeah, like I said, they got a little strange. And then because he was like the creator, and because you can't have so many super powerful gods,
Yeah.
he morphed into Ra. So they're later on in the I don't know if you're thinking about Ra being in like the, let's say, 24, 2500, 2300 BCE. We're talking not that far from that. You have Amun kind of morphing into him, or Ra taking over for him.
Okay.
You want to consider it that way. So Ra and Amun, you could, if you separated them and made them into two different ones, they overlap a lot in terms of they're both in the sky, they're both kind of there. You kind of see them, you kind of don't. Uh, one is more hidden, while the other one is more obvious, I guess you could say.
Okay.
More in terms of Ra would be obvious.
Well, yeah. If he's the sun, you see the sun at the
You
day,
see it all the time, right?
but not at night though. It disappears. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
because it's chased around. So interesting. So it kind of makes sense that as worship changed and as people adjusted their thought process, what better way to introduce like a new, say, a newer religion is to adapt some stuff from the old one into
Yeah.
the new one. So he morphed into them, and so they're now like almost synonymous. Like Amun Ra, that's just that's part of his name.
Wow.
So
No, that's really interesting. That
two sides of the same coin. If I think I got that one right.
well, can I need to jump in here because
Yeah, John.
check this out. There's this point in Wheel of Time where Balzaman, um, in a different body at this point, but it's still him. He has like this interaction with Randall Thor,
Hmm.
and they cast some balefire at a target, and their balefires both hit each other. And balefire, we'll get into that another time, but it has this property of just deleting stuff from the pattern, which is like the fabric of reality in the Wheel of Time. But it doesn't like delete you like now. It deletes you like before it happened. So like you get erased in the past. So
which is important in a cyclical cycle, because if you get
yes,
in the past, it also deletes you for the future. Future.
right, exactly. So here's like a paradox because it's like, well, my balefire erased your balefire before you cast your balefire, but your balefire erased my balefire before I cast my balefire.
Uh-oh. So you
Yeah.
got a paradox of time.
So you had a time paradox, and what happened is from then on, Balzamon and Rand, Amon and Ra, their thoughts merged,
So
and
they become one
they
almost.
become one in a way. Yeah, and it's like one would if one was channeling, the other would know it. Sometimes they even got glimpses of what they were seeing. So is Amun or is Amon a bad guy? No, but Balzamon definitely has some aspects of him, for sure. So I know I interjected. Did you have anything else to say?
Yeah, yeah, actually.
Go ahead.
So Bale's mind is a bad guy, hands down,
Case
bar none.
closed.
He is a bad guy. However, you could kind of say, could storms be bad? Could the air be bad?
Force of nature.
Forces of nature. I mean, as we even call it now, like insurance companies don't necessarily cover acts of God.
Sure.
So a force of nature is usually good, but it could also be bad. Like
For sure.
tornadoes happen and they wreak havoc, but it's still just a tornado. It's just a piece of nature. So that being said, he's not necessarily a bad guy, but bad things can happen.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Nice. So let me jump on your funny word. I'm going to mess this up too, but probably something like Ogdog, something like that. god, something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah. The deities of the eight deities.
Yeah. So there's not anything like that exactly in Wheel of Time, but there are these primordial races in Wheel of Time called the Aelflin and the Ielflin, and they're foxes and snakes. Interestingly enough, so not frogs and snakes, but the snakes are there, and the foxes may take the place of the frogs, for example.
Well,
And
frogs isn't sexy. Sorry.
no, no, I guess not. I guess not. Um, but nonetheless, Robert Jordan could have said, "I need to sexy up the frogs," and what's sexier than a fox, right?
Right?
Sexy fox, right? You're a fox,
I
whatever.
mean, they're smart, they're sly, they're cunning.
Right,
Wait,
right.
that sounds like another character. We'll get into him later.
Sure, sure, sure. So they might be kind of there in the background.
Right?
Maybe, maybe not. That's up for interpretation, like everything we're talking about. So check this out. You mentioned that Amon is kind of like the hidden deity, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The
So
scene but unseen.
so Balzamon, as it turns out, he's part of this group of baddies called the Forsaken, and when Luz Theron in the Last Age, at the end of the War of Power, he wins, more or less, and he locks away Shaitan and the other Forsaken, but as it turns out, Balzamon, he's not quite locked away. Mm-mm. And as a matter of fact, he kind of comes and goes around the world, walks the world, as it were, in the background. No one even knows he's there. Everyone in the whole Randland world assume that he's locked up with everyone else. So he kind of moves in secret, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So Balzamon is known to be a very powerful channeler. So maybe better than his other Forsakens, maybe about equal in certain things, but specifically he can wreak havoc with some lightnings and stuff like that. So kind of like a storm god kind of figure. So this is really interesting to me when you mentioned air god, sky god kind of stuff, is that there's a point in the second book where Rand actually battles Balzamon in the sky.
This guy, yep.
And they appear to this city, Tallman Head, I believe, as like 2,000 feet tall or something like that. Like you're watching like that BC Boys intergalactic planetary music video, and they're battling in the giant robots or whatever, you know? Like it's straight up like, kaiju versus, Mecha Godzilla kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, they think it's like the end of the world right then and there.
Well,
So,
yeah, you think so?
so one more aspect of him being hidden. Balzamon always shows up in the beginning wearing a mask of fire, and not his whole face, but his mouth and his eyes. You just see fire. When he talks, you see fire where teeth and tongue should be. Where he should be blinking behind his eyelids, it's flames. So he kind of stays a little bit hidden in that regard. Another thing that's really interesting about Balzamon is in Wheel of Time, there's this other world, so to speak, called Tel-Elan Riyadh. And this is the world of dreams, for lack of a better... I mean, that's what they translate it to, quote unquote. But it doesn't exactly mean that. It's more like an elseworld, more like an upside-down place, where, yeah, sometimes you could access it while you're dreaming, but it also mirrors the real world in kind of like a shadowless, sunless, lightless kind of way. Kind of like a neutral kind of place, a weird place. And Balzamon brags about being the ruler of this domain. Is he really? That's up for debate. I mean, he's kind of braggadocious, so it's hard to tell. But he can definitely do some crazy stuff here. And when you mentioned him being, Amon being kind of everywhere and nowhere, well, in the first book, Balzamon is able to tempt the three main kind of characters, Perrin, Matt, and the main man, Rand al'Thor, in their dreams. And it's kind of hard to tell, but it seems like he might be doing this all kind of at the same exact time. So in at least in this realm, it seems like he really can be almost everywhere and kind of nowhere all at the same time. Very interesting parallel there. So um, the other thing, oh, you mentioned it. So this is kind of a bizarre one, but I really think it's interesting here. Um, you mentioned that eventually he has a ram's head, right?
Yep.
So Balsamon is the commander of the Trollocs, and what I mean by that is they worship him. What are Trollocs, you might ask? They're kind of half men, half animal, and more often than not, they'll have ram's horns for their head, or they'll have a head of a ram rather. And it seems like, okay, well, he's like the guy, the deity that they worship. Most of them are wearing this kind of ram headdress that just seems pretty spot on to this Amon character being represented with ram's horns. Um, the last, I have one question for you. I know a lot of them are, but I just wonder is Amon ever depicted with like a staff or a spear kind of weapon, anything like that?
Usually no, as
Usually
far as
not.
I know.
Okay. It might be someone else then, but Balsamon, oddly enough, he uses a staff, whereas most people in Rand World are using swords and stuff. So, but maybe that'll be someone else. We'll find out. We'll find out. Um, so, yeah, no, I'm thinking there might be something else because a lot of the stuff you said kind of hit some memories. But yeah, like oh right, so Balsamon brags about being more ancient than Rand. He brags about being more ancient than the dragon.
I
And
mean, makes sense.
yeah, and as you said, like uh, Amun might be kind of older than Ra, even though Ra kind of is the creator. That makes kind of a lot of sense to me. And what's weird about that, and to kind of tie this together in a nice big bow, is that Rand kind of has the opportunity, in the cyclical sense, to create the universe at some point. But when does he do it? He does it later on.
Or
So,
is it before?
or is it before, right? So that's kind of like that to me. That kind of sounds like how Ra became the creator later on. Very interesting stuff, man. So, unless you have anything else to add,
I don't think so, man. Like I said, Egyptian gods and how they morph in and out of other deities and how they become what they are also depends on like the dynasty and how they're depicted and everything. So
okay, yeah, yeah. So I
so
assume like
I wouldn't say they're funky gods, but they're not like set in ironically set in stone.
nice, nice.
I had to pull that one in there somewhere. But no, I think we kind of got our point across.
Well, I'll just
Yeah,
add this last point then to say that Balsamon brags about battling Rand time and time again, life in, life out, multiple lives in and out, over and over again in an endless cycle or wheel, as it were, and that definitely ties into at least the Ra mythos. So
I would
very
agree.
interesting. And I guess I'll just say, you've been watching The Heels of Time. We'll upload this as another episode for you. We got our double feature going on. And until next time, it's been your host, Theo. And as always, I'm his co-host, Derek. And we will catch you next time.
Don't forget, if you have an email or something, we are the Heels of Time podcast at gmail.com. Hit you up with our YouTube channel. We live Twitched it now. So we're on that too. Instagram is coming. We'll put it
Yeah.
up there. So just want to say, have a nice week.
And please subscribe and like. Peace out.